Vaishali, how are you? I am so glad you took the time to join us today. How are you doing today?
I'm doing very well, and I'm so excited to be here today after a couple of, back and forths after all.
Well, I'm looking forward to this conversation. I think first off, I am just getting to know you and seeing your stuff, and I think you're going to be one of those voices in CX that is already on the rise. So I'm really curious to hear your perspective. So I- I'll sort of set the stage as someone who's sort of been around, and I've seen this movie. There was a time, I think the '08, '09, where there was plenty of enthusiasm around customer experience when it was a new thing, when we didn't call it CX. And
Hmm.
I'm seeing brands retreat from customer experience, as brands are looking at areas to, maybe make cuts. I'm seeing that they just go, we don't need that customer experience department anymore.
Yeah.
So my question to you would be, what the hell is CX, and and why does it actually matter?
I think CX in one very simple term is fuss free. I like to put it that way because it's super super important, but it's equally a fuss free process for the end users. It actually takes into account in how to make it free, make the experience really free for your customers, and really think about what matters is the emotions of the people in the end of the day. It's not about a business relationship. Most of the times when businesses are looking at things, just like you mentioned, oh, looking at cuts or looking at
Right.
where's revenue going well or not going well. And you think the first thing about is what experience have we given them? And that's where
Mm,
CX comes in. If you're not giving them the right experience, how are you going to cut down on these experience managers who are actually designing those experiences for you?
right.
So I
Right.
think that's what really comes into play.
You know, I think part of the issue, so let me take the other side of the critics of customer experience,
Absolutely.
is
Absolutely.
it can be this amorphous thing that
Yeah.
customer experience is the alpha and omega and the start all, and it's every part of the journey.
No.
And so then nailing down like, I understand what marketing is. I
Yeah.
understand, what services. So maybe illustrate to me, when you think about this profession that, you're a part of, and you think customer experience in the real world, what is it?
Okay. Think of this as a big, delicious burger.
Okay.
Okay. And so the first top layer, very well toasted, the sesame seed or the multigrain thing is your marketing piece. And so you're like putting this yummy outside layer of like, hey, you have different varieties of like whether you want to learn about us on radio, whether you want to learn about us on like a billboard or social media, you have varieties of it like an Italian or sesame seed or a multigrain bread. And think about the downside of the bread as the support, the customer support or the customer service. It's like, hey, we're here supporting all the layers of whatever is in between those that burger, and we'll make sure it doesn't fall.
I'm getting
But what's
hungry.
in between is, but what's in between is the experience you're designing for them.
Mm,
Everything comes down to that. And for me, and the way I look at it is the patty you choose, the salad you put in, the sauces you put in, you design that based on that particular customer or persona to enhance their experiences and make it more beautiful. So while you're marketing and customer support, it's the meat in the middle. It's the yummy, delicious, I'm hungry now, crunchy thing in the middle that actually makes someone mouth watering.
I will say I've asked that question a lot, and that's the most creative answer I've gotten, and maybe because I am just hungry now for a burger. Um, you know, Describe it to me in real life. Tell me how you've seen this come to bear in
Yeah.
your own experiences.
So I'll give you one very, actually we've done so much of work right now around it, but I'll give you a very interesting one for a very boring industry, which is from manufacturing industry. And this was about a couple of months ago when I had a chance to go on site and do a discovery session and an interview session with the diverse stakeholders within the manufacturing industry space. And so we actually sat down, we put on these billboard, we put on printed out papers of the exact customer journey and the personas of who those customers were. And these people were shocked. They were like, I didn't even know something like that exists because all of this image of these, and all of them were marketing folks. The people who are designing the website.
Mm.
We're working on designing the website for them, and we're working with the stakeholders to kind of gather the right requirements so we can build their user journeys on the website. And we designed this entire thing, and we all sat down together, uh, you know, drawing on it and doing these whiteboards and things. And after that, we had this massive wheel. It's called the Chanto Emotion Wheel. And I asked them, hold on, before we do any of this, or before we go into development, ask yourself, what experience do you really, what emotion do you really want the user to feel? And then you pinpoint around that, and it's a beautiful thing. I think you should definitely, hopefully, people get to check it out, and whenever they do, it's a massive deal with different emotions. It's like, do you want them to be angry, and then actually make sure that that emotion they feel is consistent throughout different journeys. And now the site is almost going to be launched, and we're very, very excited to see the drastic change into all of it.
Is fantastic. It does make me think about, I find lots of CX organizations being part of marketing, and I see there's overlap in service. So disambiguate both all three of these for me. Do you have a line between where you think about as customer service, where you think about a marketing, where you think about as CX? And I think your burger analogy did a good job of that. But can you say a little more there?
Yeah, yeah, I do think I absolutely agree with you. I work on with both teams collaboratively on daily basis. So it's not CX is not isolated. I don't see there's a line between which marketing gets over and CX starts. It has to be very. I'll give you a very simple example. We're working with an education sector at the moment, and it's very interesting because they are very content oriented. They care about what goes on the site. And we're like, great, you care about the content, but we care about the components of how that is presented to the user. You can have blah, 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 blah in a straight format, or you can have it broken down with an image, some text with an image, or some kinds of videos, and then you visualize you so the customer or the reader can digest that information. So we work very closely with marketing teams to kind of design and use modular components on the websites so that their experience is better. This is just one of the ways that I work with digital marketing teams to kind of work collaboratively to enhance experiences. And similarly, when I was working with my previous company, I was working very closely with our customer service teams because there were things that would happen. There would be like outages at vendor issues or anything else, and how we would
Right.
deal with them based on making sure their experience was extremely important. So it was hand in hand.
Okay. I'll flip the tables on you a little bit. So if you think about, what purchases or purchase have you made under $50 that has impacted your life in a hopefully positive, but if negative as well. And I'll go first to give you some time to think about it. I would say I don't know however many years ago, maybe 8 or 9 years ago, I bought one Alexa Dot, and that Alexa has now turned into thousands and thousands of dollars. Where my old house now is a smart. I talk to everything. I've got a smart. It's created a monster, and I don't know any way out. But my
Wow.
entire house is now like Iron Man, where you walk into a room and it knows what I want. So that small purchase impacted my life. I'm not sure if it's for the better. What about you?
Oh my God, you had plenty of time to think about this. I didn't really think about it. But if I can have something on top of my head, it would definitely be this book that I bought very recently, and it's called The Growth Mindset.
Okay.
Dr. Carol, and I absolutely love it because it just transformed my way of thinking. I didn't know that I was thinking in a certain way for a very long time. And then when you read something, you're learning something, it's really captivating and makes you realize and acknowledge the fact of how you think makes a difference even in the smallest of the smallest things. And it's something maybe your parents told you years ago, but you never considered it. And the way you can bring that shift in your own mindset right now, you still have the ability to learn and evolve.
Awesome. Um, I've got a few more minutes here, but I want to get your take as you sort of think about the future. What makes you pessimistic, and what makes you optimistic looking out the next 12 to 18 months about customer experience?
Oof. So I think there are a few things. I'm very optimistic about the fact that there's a lot of rise of awareness within the CX space,
Yep.
which actually allows people to understand what it means, also bring in more investments into the space because we see a lot of projects, at least bids or conversations going around it. I'm not saying people are not investing, but they're actually inquiring about it a lot more than they were before. And the noise is really helping. One of the downsides of the fall, unfortunately, is that there is too much noise.
Mm.
And then you don't know what's actually, there's like credential inflation, if I would put it that way, because I
Ah,
feel like
yeah.
it's like too many opinions, too many people talking about the same thing. You're like, I'm outdated. It's enough of content consumption, and you're like, it's a lot. And then that also kind of inflates on how would people perceive of certain things because someone else has said it, and then they question the other thought leader around those things. So I think that is very, very interesting. I'm really looking forward to the technology advancements that's happening, and every day there's a new product being launched. And there's so
Mm.
many competitors in this space that everyone's being, pushed over almost because it's like, oh, I can do this. And then there's another product that's like, I can actually do better. And then there's another, I can do better. And then you're like, oh my God, what's going on? It's so competitive. It is so competitive. But the downfall to that, I think, is we've given customers so many options right
Right.
now
Right.
that at this point I feel there's some ridiculous demands. And I'm like, this doesn't make sense.
Yeah. There's decision fatigue.
There is.
There is the democratization of everything. Is, to your point, so many experts, so much technology,
Yeah,
so many diverse opinions. How do I sort of separate the signal from the noise?
true.
Right, is increasingly. I want to hone in on one thing you said, which was, this whole proliferation of CX everything. I think that's been my issue with CX lately, because there's this labelization of CX on
Yeah,
everything.
yeah,
There could be a very, very uniquely service failure. We want to slap the CX label on it. So be very careful. This is what I say to the CX pros, that be careful about when everything becomes everything, it becomes nothing, right? Then it becomes this
absolutely.
amorphous. There is no there. On the other hand, boy, the speed of innovation of what's going on in the marketplace, it's
It's
quite
insane.
it's quite insane. What do you Before we get out of here, um, I am surprised that we've been having this conversation now for about 15 minutes and you've not said the word AI. You
Yeah.
deserve some kind of a cookie, a prize for not being that cliche. But that said, because I think it's a crime to have a conversation without mentioning AI, what are your thoughts
Yeah.
on what becomes possible because of all this noise we're hearing?
See, this is why I say CX is not everything. I think AI is the future. AI is the present. And it'll always continue to evolve and grow as, but I don't think it's replacing humans at any way or form possible. It's almost like a co-pilot to us. The more we learn, the more AI learns of us, and then we learn from AI. So I think it's an ever evolving circle of just constant learning and growth, which also helps, I think, the industry go overall. But it will only continue to help as long as how much you can use it. And having said that, it cannot, I circle back to the main thing, AI does not have emotions. So it
Yeah,
can never do what humans can do.
that's beautifully well said. So on the way out, I like to leave folks with quote something interesting you learned this week. Mine would be a niche quote. Um, Niche writes that if you crush a cockroach, you're a hero. If you crush a beautiful butterfly, you're a villain. Both of those things are are bugs. And I think what I learned from that is, customer service, marketing, customer experience, they all can be investments depending on how you
Yes.
view them, right? If you view customer service as the cockroach, then you want to spend as little as possible on it and not invest. And if
Yeah.
you view marketing as a butterfly, then
Yeah.
but you need balance. You need to kind of
Correct.
recognize all of these disciplines are worthy of investments if you do them correctly. What would you leave folks with before we head out?
I actually feel something that's a bit personal, but I think I'm just gonna keep. I'll actually say both. First one is just circling back on what you said, which is I think balance is absolutely important. One cannot do without the other. If people say, "Oh, CX is the only thing forward," I would just absolutely disagree. You can have the best of the best experiences, but if you don't give them the right service, your experience is going to fall.
For
And if
sure.
marketing doesn't happen, you're never going to be able to create those experiences because people will not trust you and the brand to even try it out for the first time. So I think equally everything is important as long as everything is done in moderation and each role is, I feel there are people, honestly, I do. There are people who feel like CX is superior than CS because first CS was everything and then CX came in and then they're like CX, 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 CX. And suddenly the customer service went like down, 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 or it wasn't viewed as highly recognized as it
Right.
should have been. Uh,
Right.
and don't get me wrong, but they all get the backfall. Anything goes wrong, it's them who has to hear the customer
Of course.
first.
Of course.
But it's not like that. There is no difference there. Everyone's equal. So I think treat everyone equally. That's extremely important. And there's no difference in terms of hierarchy at all, whether it's marketing, CS, or CX. So that's my first one. And the second one is personally a bit close to me because a very, very close friend's mom passed away today.
I'm sorry to hear that.
And um, it was very sudden and it just made us realize that life is so short. Just make the most of it and just be happy with whatever you do because that's what life is supposed to be. It's supposed to be enjoyed.
Wow. It's a beautiful, beautiful place to leave it. Vaishali, thanks for coming on the show. We hope you will come back and see us. We'll post your LinkedIn info so folks can go connect with you and check out your stuff. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I absolutely love having this chat with you.
Awesome. You've been listening to an Amos Talks production.